We're coming in hot with inspiring guests, witty banter, and colorful commentary for today's veterans and military community. This is the Tango Alpha Lima podcast.
They call me crazy cause I'm facing all my giants. They try to scare me into thinking I can fight it. They tell me I should never even think of trying. But that's just me, I'm gonna live out in defiance.
All right, Alphas, I'm so glad that you're here with us again. I'm glad to be with you. I'm glad you're with me. And you know who else is with us? Amy Forsyth. Welcome back, Amy. She's back to guest host another episode and transition the conversation into the 40th anniversary of the invasion of Grenada. So first of all, there's the two things at once. Welcome, Amy. Thank you for being here again.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. It was great to meet you at the annual convention in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I've been such a big fangirl of yours, seeing you do your thing. And we connected in person. And now here we are. And I'm guest hosting for this edition. And, we have two amazing guests coming up. Before we do that, let's talk about what's in the news today and this week. This week marks the 40th anniversary of Operation Urgent Fury. Now, most of our listeners may remember this. Some listeners may not. So it's good to kind of do a little history lesson. It was one of the biggest military operations in the Western Hemisphere, which took place on one of the smallest islands. And not many people know about this military action, but we have an article from Defense Media Network with a little bit of background. It was a military coup led to the abduction and assassination of Grenada's Prime Minister, Maurice Bishop, and control of the government was seized by the Revolutionary Military Council. The Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, as well as their Grenada neighbors, Barbados, Jamaica, asked the United States for help. The ensuing U.S. intervention involved a joint task force of nearly 8,000 personnel. And I barely remember this, but Urgent Fury was conducted by Joint Task Force 20, which included the U.S. Army's Rapid Deployment Force, U.S. Marines, the U.S. Independence Carrier Battle Group, U.S. Navy SEALs, and Air Force fighters and logistics aircraft. It was America's first major military operation since the end of the Vietnam War. So it was a really big deal. I do remember this. Grenada, for those who don't know, is a tiny country, only about 133 square miles, making it twice the size of Washington, D.C. So you can imagine just how tiny it is. The mission of JTF-20 was to protect innocent lives, among them several hundred Americans attending medical school in Grenada, prevent the chaos from escalating, and restore government institutions and the rule of law in Grenada. With the no-notice joint force contingency operation, the Reagan administration, President Ronald Reagan was in office then, took a stand against the Soviet and Cuban influence in the Caribbean. The U.S. forces, joined by 300 members of the Caribbean Peace Force, fielded from Jamaica, Barbados, and Eastern Caribbean, were opposed by the Marxist People Revolutionary Army, PRA, with Cuban advisors armed with Soviet weapons. Sadly, 19 Americans were killed during Urgent Fury. Prime Minister Bishop was himself a revolutionary, having overthrown the government of Eric Gary. Bishop's revolutionary rival, Bernard Coard, was more extreme and led a violent ultra-left counter-revolution, killing Bishop and many of his supporters in the revolutionary cabinet. Urgent Fury exposed difficulties in joint service coordination and led to the establishment of the Goldwater-Nichols Department of Defense Reorganization Act of 1986. The exclusion of media resulted in the creation of the U.S. Department of Defense National Media Pool. So two big significant events from Urgent Fury, that being the establishing more of a joint operational common operating picture. And then obviously, a few years later, we would learn those hard lessons about embedding media and how to do that for a couple years later would be Desert Shield, Desert Storm. So I barely remember this, but what do you think? What's your take on this?
Oh my goodness. I am not smart enough to understand any of it. However, the name Urgent Fury to me, I would just wonder how they come up with these names. Like how there must be a way, there's probably some sort of regulation that comes up with how they name conflicts. But Urgent Fury sounds like when you haven't cleaned your room and your mom's coming home. Like so
well, there are some interesting naming conventions of how named exercises and named operations, people sitting around a table naming these missions.
Yeah. It's like, what can we get away with? What can we get away with here? Let's see what we could do.
Right.
Well, yeah, that's super. It's all interesting. And I was not alive at the time, but I am interested in learning more about it. All right, Alphas, today we'll be joined by two members of the American Legion National Leadership Team. Coast Guard veteran Autrey James serves as the National Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation Commission Chair, and Army veteran Matthew Shuman serves as the Chairman of the National Security Commission. As the threat of a government shutdown still looms, there are potential national security concerns and impacts that could ripple through the VA. We'll be back to discuss these concerns and talk about other Legion priorities with Matthew and Autrey right after the break.
The American Legion is raising awareness about PTSD and veteran suicide by offering hope, camaraderie, and support.
Be the one to help end veteran suicide.
The goal of the American Legion's Be the One campaign is to destigmatize asking for mental health support.
Be the one to ask a veteran in your life how they're doing.
Be the one who saves one veteran.
Go to betheone.org and help the American Legion end veteran suicide.
Will you be the one?
Welcome back, Alphas. I hope you're having a great day. I've missed you and thought about you constantly. I've written a letter to your mother, and I hope she writes back. Hey, everybody. I am here today with the fabulous Amy Forsyth. Hello, Amy. How are you?
Hi. Good to see you,
Good.
Ashley. Good. Great to be here.
And also, I'm here to talk with the chairman of the National Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation Commission Chair. What did you call
Autrey James?
Autrey James, but I was going to say Mr. James, but then Holly, you had said something earlier. You called him, what did they call you? Commissioner.
Well, you can call me Autrey, or you can call me AJ, or
but
whatever works for you.
Your official title that my brain just decided to completely dump.
The official title is National VA&R, or Veterans Affairs and Rehabilitation Chairman for the American Legion.
Chairman, there we are. Chairman James, thank you for being here. Obviously, my brain is gone.
It's all right. We all have those days.
Thank you so much. And you said I can call you Autrey, which is lovely because you're a friend of the show. Thank you.
Yes, yeah. This is my second appearance at least, I think.
Fantastic. Hopefully we will have many, many more. I just want to sort of lay the groundwork for what we're talking about today, and that is the potential of a government shutdown. And how your sort of commission works to help, and just sort of the ripple effects that it could have on national security issues, healthcare, other services provided by the VA. And that's sort of what we're going to be getting into today. Okay. And I'm glad to have you. And I'm going to throw it over to my co-host, Amy Forsyth, to hit you up with the first question.
Hey, Autrey. Oh, it's so great to have you here. This isn't your first rodeo, right? You've seen this before. The train is barreling down the tracks and people get worried and nervous because, it affects pretty much everyone, and especially our veterans who have to be wondering, where do I go? Where can I turn to? What can you tell them or reassure them about what services they can look for, and ways that the American Legion and the VA are working together to help no matter what, if there's a shutdown or not?
Certainly. So thank you for that question, and thank you for having me here, first of all. But I want to reassure our veterans out there that the VA will remain open. That's the important thing to remember. If we do wind up in a shutdown, a government shutdown, the VA, for the most part, is going to remain open. There are some services that don't necessarily affect the vast majority of veterans that may be closed, but for the most part, if you have an appointment with the VA during the shutdown, that appointment's going to still go. VHA, the Veterans Health Administration, which takes care of the hospitals and the CBOCs and all of that, they're still going to be open. People are still going to be able to make appointments. People are still going to be able to go to their appointments. If you've got things scheduled already, procedures scheduled, those will still be going on. So they don't need to worry about that. On the benefit side, people shouldn't worry about whether or not there's still people processing their claims, because there will be. On the benefit side, claims are still going to be paid. There's still going to be processing of benefit claims that came in. With the PACT Act and the backlog that everyone's expecting by November to be close to 1 million, I think the number is. They're not going to stop working on that. They're going to continue to whittle that number down and process those claims through. So you don't have to worry about that. But in addition to that, on the cemetery side, you still have people who will need to be interred. Both veterans and eligible family members will still be interred. All of the services that go along with that, processing of headstone requests, processing of pre-processing of burial eligibility, all of that's going to continue on. What you're probably going to see is they're not going to be cutting the lawns. The grass isn't going to get cut. That's not an essential part of the VA's job, although it's a job that we want them to continue to do to keep our cemeteries, our veteran cemeteries, looking top notch. But things like that aren't going to happen. So those are the critical areas that a lot of people wonder about. But also folks on the education side understand that veterans education and employment, a lot of that is still going to be available to folks as well. So if you're going to school and you're worried about getting payments and things like that, that's still going to happen. The thing about VA is that they're funded ahead of time. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. So they were funded last year for this year for much of the work that they do. So that's why why you don't have to worry about the VA shutting down in this particular year.
Hey, that's great news, because I bet as we get closer to a shutdown, you start getting more phone calls and people worried, some more questions coming up, I suppose. So we want to reassure everyone, right?
Right. And of course that, if you're looking to go to a veteran service officer, we're still going to be open. All of the American Legion veteran service officers and officers are still going to be open. They're still going to be working claims. So if you've got an appointment and you're worried about that, we're not connected to the government in that sense, even though we may be in some government buildings.
Okay. So what are some of the things that you're worried about that other people might not be thinking? Are there any? I know people are kind of worried they might not get paid. They'll probably be paid eventually, but things like that. Is there anything that's on your mind that may not be obvious to others that they can prepare for?
Yeah, I think that particular question, I think, strikes to the heart of what a lot of people are concerned about. Folks who are working, not necessarily working in the VA, but are getting their daily checks or monthly checks through the VA. They're worried about that. And I can understand that. It's like, how are you going to make ends meet if the money's not coming in? They don't have to worry about that. That part has been taken care of. Those checks are still going to be rolling out to folks. So, that goes along with the benefits part of it all. That stuff has been funded in advance. It's still going to be around. Some of it is funded. Some of the VA care is also funded through the PACT Act, the toxic exposure portion of that. So, if you're worried about your check coming, it's going to come, whether it's for disability, whether it's for education, it's still coming. You don't have to worry about that part of it.
Okay, great.
Well, that's good. We want to get on the rooftops and shout that out, right? So
Yeah.
we can reduce the anxiety and people calling, not impacted whatsoever. Now, for those that would be impacted, say like, our Coast Guard, especially any military members or those small few government, agencies that will definitely shut down if there is a shutdown for veterans also impacted. What other kind of food sources or emergency loans, or is there any role or resources you can provide?
Yeah, every community is different. So I'll try and give resources that are in general, if you don't mind. And generally speaking, every community has a food bank either in it or nearby. So if you need help, you can certainly go to the food bank. Food insecurity is a big issue still, not just among service members, but upon everyday folks and veterans alike. But also, don't forget your local American Legion posts. During the last shutdown, American Legion helped to fund more than in the amount of more than $1 million to Coast Guard members, active duty Coast Guard members. That's what we did during the last shutdown. Expect the American Legion to step up again with funding. So it's important that things like the food, it's there. If you're a veteran and you're familiar with the vet centers, which will remain open, a lot of times I know at my local vet center, sometimes they have cards that you can give folks for gas. It may not be a lot, but maybe it can help you make it to work or to your appointment or whatever it is that you need to do. Those are some of the resources that are out there. And it's not just the American Legion. I mean, my heart is with the American Legion, but maybe there isn't a post near you, but maybe some other veteran service organization. And there are a number of veteran service organizations that are out there, and they're willing to do what they can to help. You need only ask.
Yeah, there's a lot of food insecurity is one of my personal
Right.
causes, and I work with the nonprofit Stronghold Community Pantry, which helps military families, and we've tried to expand it worldwide. But another thing to use if you're still in or recently retired is a Military One Source has a list of all of the food banks that are approved, like they've looked into.
Right.
Near military bases. So you can check that out. I know on the Coast Guard, unfortunately, for whatever reason, they don't let them have Military One Source, which is ridiculous to me. So there's that to check out. And I'm hoping to try to find more sources for food near bases and near where people are. But the American Legion definitely steps up when it comes to things like that.
Absolutely.
Is there anything you want people to know? Anything that as it's all so uncertain, isn't it? There's so many different things that are up in the air. It's sort of like in my mind, take it day by day, and let's unfortunately watch the news, such I don't like to do because it's always
it can be depressing.
Yeah. And see what's happening, and then where can people go to find the most updated things? Do they go to your website? Do they go to their local posts, or just to kind of see, okay, this is what's happening, this is what's changing, this is where I can get resources?
All right, so we're trying to put information in the hands of local posts so that they'll have them. I'm hoping that if there is a shutdown, that we can take a little piece of what we're talking about here today and put that on our on legion.org so that people know exactly what's available to them through the VA. In terms of resources, your local Legion post, if they can't help, they will know who can help. Our service officers, our post-service officers, one of their main jobs is keeping resources, keeping list of resources available to people. The other thing that I want to say is when you have food insecurity and uncertainty, mental health, your mental health can take a toll. And I want to reassure people that things like 988, press 1 if you're a veteran, that's still going to be available. The Veterans Crisis Line will still be available. So if you need to, please, I implore you, if you need it, don't be afraid to ask for help. It's okay to ask for help. And that's the biggest thing that we have to remember. And for, those of you who know that people are going through things, or maybe you aren't sure, maybe you know a veteran out there and you haven't had the opportunity to reach out and talk to them recently, now leading up to, and if there is a shutdown, we don't know at this point, but if there is a shutdown, the buddy check. Call a buddy, check on them, let them know you're there. Let them know that you can help if you can, or you're somebody that they can turn to. I think that, sometimes we forget about that mental health aspect of it all. But when you break down what pushes people to the edge, it's things like food insecurity. It's things like, where's my next check coming? Those are the things that if we can help veterans deal with those things, those are ways that we can change lives. So I just want to make sure that we talk about that as well.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you brought that up. That's an excellent point. And I have people that write to me sometimes that are on that edge, and I give them resources and give the 988 number. And I don't know if you know that can be used in conjunction with their psychologist or their therapist to help them get into different in-residence programs. So it can be used as a multiplier. And I've seen it work wonders. So definitely dial it, use it, reach out.
Absolutely.
And legion.org has some resources, as you mentioned, and Be the One initiative to be the one to save a veteran's life, reduce veteran suicide. But all these little triggers, with the anxiety of the shutdown, and they may not be having financial problems, but everywhere they turn, there's like a problem. And so creating some resiliency in that network. The American Legion just provides that safety net and that camaraderie that sometimes veterans are after, looking for. Tell us your experience with your local American Legion, and what the value is for folks spread across the country.
Yeah, with my local American Legion, I'm the post adjutant there. So buddy checks is kind of what I do. I'm the person who starts in on the buddy checks and checks on people from time to time. And there's other people within the post that help, but that is, at my post, that's a big thing in terms of just trying to reach out to folks as best you can. We don't have everybody's numbers, so we do what we can.
Yeah, that buddy check. I just heard about it for the first time this year. And so as an official week-long, and awareness, but buddy checks are good throughout the year. Every day of the year, buddy checks is helpful. So
yeah, this week, October 16th through the 20th has been the VA's National Buddy Check. Yeah. Next month, the week of Veterans Day, there's the American Legion's Buddy Check for the second one of this year. And then next year in March will be our next Buddy Check session. Week-long buddies check session surrounding the Legion's birthday.
Fantastic. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, sir, thank you so much for all the information you provided today, and places for people to look as this situation evolves. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this topic. I'm glad that we're able to get information out to folks.
Yeah, it's wonderful. All right, Alphas. We will be right back with more information. We're going to chat with National Security Commission Chairman Matt Shuman. So stick around.
Veterans.
Defense.
Youth.
And Americanism.
The American Legion was built by veterans to help veterans.
Make the transition back to civilian life.
Receive the health care they earned and deserve.
Face mental health and well-being challenges. Understand and use government benefits available to them, including the GI Bill. Pursue rewarding careers after discharge. Keep a roof overhead. Remember and honor those who came before us, especially those who made the ultimate sacrifice.
National security has been the guiding principles of the American Legion since its founding.
Ensuring that members of the United States Armed Forces are supported on the battlefield, in Washington, and at home, fighting for adequate defense funding demanding a full accountability of all POW and MIAs.
The mentorship of youth follows two main paths: promoting responsible citizenship through competitive and educational programs, operating and supporting national programs and competitions such as American Legion Baseball, Boys State and Boys Nation, oratorical competition, junior shooting sports, youth cadet law enforcement, Boy Scouts, local and regional youth programs, and junior ROTC, providing a square deal for every child, no matter his or her circumstances, through such programs as temporary financial assistance, the Child Welfare Foundation, college scholarships, and more.
Americanism is a responsibility the American Legion upholds to promote responsibility through respect for our nation's flag, active participation in our nation's democracy, promotion of U.S. citizenship and naturalization, teaching young people patriotic values,
active, effective community service, and disaster relief.
We are veterans strengthening America. We are the American Legion.
And welcome back, Alphas. We are so glad you're here. And we're now joined by Matt Shuman, who was appointed as the chairman of the National Security Commission of the American Legion back in October 2022. And he is dedicated to ensuring our nation's active duty personnel and their families have the necessary resources to protect America while ridding the world of evil doers. Thank you and welcome for joining our podcast today. Great to have you here.
I'm glad to be here, and I'm thank you for mentioning sort of the mission statement of the American Legion's National Security Commission. We are ridding the world of evildoers and protecting and serving the people who do.
Wonderful. Well, you are a proud member of the American Legion Department of Arizona, Post 44 in Scottsdale, and a member of the Sons of the American Legion and Riders. So you're all in, and we are so glad to talk to you today because we've got a lot of things on the world stage, on the American stage. Talk to us about the national security with the American Legion, and what are you guys, how are you going to help, and what are you sharing with folks today?
Yeah, first of all, it's a great question, and there's so much to discuss, but I'm going to do my best to sort of keep it focused in this lane. I think it's important to realize if you ask, average Americans, what is the brand of the American Legion? They're going to tell you that, it's VA focused, right? But a lot of people don't realize that one of the four pillars of the American Legion, one of the foundations that's holding up our organization, is indeed our engagement in national security, right? We don't just fight for veterans. We fight for service members, active duty personnel, their families, their quality of life, and making sure that America remains the strongest bastion of freedom ever to exist on Earth. I think we are talking about a context of what a government shutdown looks like. I think we're talking about sort of national security at whole. The national stage is fraught with concern. I think that's where we have to figure out why is America, why has it been so strong? Are we getting weaker? What can we do to make sure that we are resoundingly louder than anybody else and stronger?
Yeah. In the context of national security okay. Here's something I wonder. Matthew, do you have any other insights do other countries go through this? Do other countries? Oh, yeah. Yeah. So this is not just us not able to make decisions. There's other countries that are screwing this up too.
Oh yeah, let's go back to the phrase "more money, more problems." Right? We put an immense amount of dollars into the defense of our country, but also the defense of other countries. Right? We don't like to say it, but we're the world police. Right? If there's trouble spewing somewhere else, if we don't stop it, it's going to grow and become a bigger issue. Right? We see this in sort of regions of the world. But here's the thing. The United States military is the strongest force for good ever to exist. Not an opinion, just a fact. And we have to shape them. There's a lot of conversation from Capitol Hill, the White House, and the federal agencies. When we put trillions of dollars into the DoD, how do we spend that money, right? How are we making sure that service members have the best tools, right? we're also looking at a different battleground now. There's two different battlegrounds. There's a physical battleground, and there's the space that we are in right this moment on cyber, right? Cybersecurity and engaging that arena. So there's a lot of impact, and it's a matter of like, more money, more problems. Where are we putting those money? Where are we putting those resources? How are we equipping our soldiers? I say soldiers, sort of ubiquitous term for all service personnel. How are we making sure that we're the strongest? And American Legion is doing quite a bit to engage the DoD, make sure that we have the resources they need, make sure that we are an advocate for them to go to Capitol Hill and advocate for the resources that they need, and making sure that like our American Legion posts throughout the country, and really the 12,000 posts. I like to tell people context. We have 12,000 posts across the world. That's more locations than Walmart. I mean, we really have a massive footprint, and we can be these incredible sort of resource stops in every single community of all the resources that are available to active duty personnel, their families, veterans, and their families as well.
Well, Matt, yeah.
No money, no problems.
Yeah. What would you tell the individual family unit or in the community, I mean, about resilience and about being prepared for kind of any contingency, and where does that meet at the American Legion level?
Yeah, I think there's one thing. Well, we're taught lots of things in the military, right? But one of the things is always be prepared, always, have a plan. I think the quote that General Mattis used to say is, be nice to everybody, but have a plan to kill them as well, type of vibe. So yeah, every single military family, veteran family has a plan. What's going to happen if X happens? And there's a lot of what ifs. I would say factor in your American Legion post. There's an incredible source of knowledge and friendship that can help you at a Legion post. Hell, if you need help replacing your, sink, there's someone at your post who can help you. But on the other side of that, right, if there are resources that you need, go to your American Legion post, right? This really should be the one-stop shop for the American service member and veteran family. Because our national organization, in addition to the posts, have incredible resources. And during the government shutdown a couple of years ago, the American Legion spent well over $1 million in helping Coast Guard families who weren't getting paid. Fun fact, during government shutdown, the Coast Guard doesn't get paid. A lot of people didn't realize that. And it's still a conversation on Capitol Hill today, is if we go into a shutdown, who gets paid, what doesn't get paid, what resources falter, what, does the American, does the resolve of the DoD across the national stage, across the world, does it get weaker if we're in a shutdown? Is that a time for our enemies to test us? There's so many different questions, but I would say, I'll come back to your question, is factor in your American Legion post because they have resources, they want to help, and it's going to make you and your family unit even stronger if you're partnering with other people like us.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Ashley, yeah.
One of the things I think you're talking about, we're talking about spending and making decisions and things like that. I feel like anybody, like I've worked for the government, okay? I feel like anybody that has worked for the government, you see waste, right?
Sure.
You see how things could be spent better, but there's also this, it's a massive machine.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, do you have any ideas on how that could be better? If we were able to make better decisions on the ground, if that could trickle up?
So the answer is going to be actually, of course, right? There's fraud, waste, and abuse all over the place, right? We've all heard of the stories of like the federal government testing the effects of cocaine on monkeys, right? We know that's going to make them crazier. But let's study it. So here's the thing. There's a scene from one of my favorite TV shows. Listen, I live and work in Washington, D.C. The White House is a block away from me right now. But there's a scene in The West Wing where a character asks another character who's a service member, why do we spend, $2,000 making an ashtray for a submarine? And he picks it up and he throws it on the ground and it breaks. And he said, here's the thing, that thing broke into 3 pieces and it didn't shatter like regular glass would. That's why. Because on a submarine, when they have to go down, things slide, they break. You don't want glass everywhere, but this thing broke in 3 different distinct pieces. It's designed for that. So there's a lot of resources and time and money that goes into designing things for a particular military sort of standard and need. So, listen, the DoD's budget is, $2 trillion. Do we think that there's places they can cut money and spend it wiser? Absolutely. How do we dive down into those? I think there's people that get paid more than me to help figure that out. But I'll tell you this, the American Legion is and certainly should be calling for robust, deep sort of audits that work there, right? A lot of questions about how we can spend that money to make it better for quality of life for our service members, right? There's always stories of service members being on welfare on SNAP, trying to get other resources from elsewhere. Can we probably pay our troops better? Most certainly. Can we make sure that our troops are paid during a government shutdown? Absolutely. And the American Legion is calling for all of that to happen.
Yeah. Oh, that's I love it. I think about, I remember being in college and they were learning about how companies work budgets, because or big organizations work this way too, where if you don't spend, it was, what should you do? You have a surplus of $100,000 this year. What should you do? And I said, okay, give it back to the organization, and then we work from there. That's not the answer, because then next year you won't get that $100,000 again, and we all have to hoard it. And
I remember it's crazy, right? I was in the Army and they were like, oh, well, if we don't spend this money in, July, August, September, we're not going to get the same amount next year. Like, maybe you don't need the same amount next year. Have you ever thought about that? Right. But two is like, we talk about surplus. Actually, you throw out that word surplus. We don't have a surplus in the federal government. We are spending significantly more money than we're taking in. And that alone is a national security threat.
Totally. I'm on board with you, Matthew. I love you.
Listen, I love you and you're amazing. And anyway, I'm done, but you're incredible. And the logic is not sound that we are spending more money than we're taking in. We might not have the most secure of a defense agency as we used to. And our people are our enemies, our foes, or as I like to say, evildoers, are the evildoers on the national stage, thinking that this might be an ideal time to test the resolve of the American people. I say, bring it on. There's a Medal of Honor recipient that says, if you want to screw around with America, other people will raise your sons and daughters. And that's a very, very true statement. Figure out, play with us and see what happens.
Yeah, great insight. And with your law enforcement background, your education, all your expertise that you're bringing, the world is unstable, but you mentioned the money. It's like funny money, because it's so much, as how do you even keep track? But what we really want to reassure people, and veterans especially, is that in turbulent times, and whether it's a government shutdown or instability with law enforcement, riots, that the American Legion local posts can be a real a safe place, I want to say.
Sure.
If you're new to a city and you don't know anyone, you definitely have friends if there's an American Legion post, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like I said, like I said a few minutes ago about the number of locations we have. If you're new to a city, right, if you're a veteran or involved in the veteran family at all, go there. I guarantee you're going to, I'll point out real quick. Two of my friends in Arizona moved there from Maine less than a year ago and now have the most absolutely incredible network of friends. That happens all the time. So you're factoring that in. We're also talking about ways that we can ensure that there's a stronger, more robust DoD is important, but leverage sort of the infrastructure and network that the American Legion has.
Yeah. Great advice. And we have a lot of resources online, but what are your favorite resources that you redirect people to?
Yeah, Autrey said it best, right? I think the first thing is always your Legion post, right? Go to those resources. They're going to have an immense amount of resources available to you. Engage with your members of Congress. I think that's the thing. Veterans have a voice. We have one of the largest voices in America. We need to do a better job of encouraging our members and their families to engage their members of Congress and let them know what needs they're going to need as well. But states also have resources. The American Legion has resources. Other veteran service organizations have resources. Tap into, but I'll tell you this right, start your Legion post, because they're going to know a lot of the resources. They're going to be your first point of contact. And if they don't know it, I guarantee you they're going to have some of theirs and help you find it.
Great. Wonderful. Well, we're going to wrap things up. Thank you for those resources and getting people connected, dialed in to where they need to be, especially if there's a government shutdown or any other contingency that we don't even know about, right? There's something always lurking around the corner. So thank you, Matt Shuman. We appreciate you dropping in.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. You guys are amazing and awesome.
Thank you so much. And Alpha, stick around. We'll be right back with the rapid fire segment. Stay with us.
To look out for those that served, we must be relentless. To influence Washington to do the right thing, not just for our veterans, but for the country, we must be organized. To inspire the next generation of leaders, we must be united. We must be Legion. The American Legion. Join today at legion.org/join.
Welcome back, Alphas. So Ashley, what'd you think about what Autrey and Matt were talking about.
There's just so much, isn't there, Amy? There's so much to think about. So, all, like we said, the ripple effects, all of the things that can come from a shutdown, all the worries. I post online, and I try to get people to tell me, like, what are the things that they're concerned about. Paychecks, where's the money going to come from? Am I going to be able to afford this and that? From the individual family to the national security issues. I'm glad that we were kind of able to cover both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, and every time I talk to someone affiliated with American Legion, I learned something new about the services and the resources. And that's why we do this. When we get together, we bring in experts and people who are really at the tip of the spear, on the ground, making it happen. And so I love checking in, Matt was in DC, Autrey was in California. And so it's just amazing to really hear firsthand, the work they're doing.
Absolutely. It's great. I learned so much too every time. We're both smart guys. All right, let's make a transition into my favorite segment. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Yay. All right. Rapid fire. Here we go. Rapid fire number 1. Home again, Marines. World War II diary returns to his daughter 81 years after the final entry. The diary of a Marine who recorded his first 8 months of World War II in the Pacific before fighting in some of its bloodiest battles is back with his family after it surfaced 81 years later. Charlie Kitts, 70, of Ackworth, Georgia, was going through his late uncle's personal effects in 2021 when he discovered the worn government-issued book. Petty Officer First Class Vincent Kitts served in the Navy during World War II, survived the Pearl Harbor attack on December 7, 1941, and the sinking of the USS Astoria off Guadalcanal 8 months later. His nephew knew he had a treasure on his hands, but was dismayed to see someone else's name, Leo McDermott, scrawled on the inside cover. The discovery started Charlie Kitts on a 2-year quest to find McDermott's family and give his diary to them. The final entry in the wartime diary of Marine Sergeant Leo Bull McDermott was written August 7, 1942, the same day Marines of the 1st Division landed on Guadalcanal in the Solomon Islands. The book arrived in August at the home of McDermott's daughter, Patty McDermott Dorscheid in Fairhaven, Massachusetts, 81 years and a day after the Marines went ashore on Guadalcanal. I tell you, the way it came together, it was kind of like Leo was involved to make it happen, Kitts said. Vincent Kitts moved to St. Louis after the war and became a union millwright, maintaining factory equipment, his nephew said. He died in 1997 at age 77. His personal papers bounced around between family members before finally landing with his nephew in 2018. It took 3 years for Charlie Kitts to peer into the box collecting dust in the garage. When I first saw the diary, my thought was, oh, Uncle Vincent left the diary. And then, of course, I opened it. He said there was a level of disappointment, but at the same time, it was, I wonder how he got it. I wonder who Leo was. Well, Sergeant Leo Bull McDermott served with K Company, 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines of the storied 1st Marine Division, known as the Old Breed. Dorscheid, 68, said by phone, September 6th. She and her father survived one bloody engagement after another, from the Battle of Tenaru on Guadalcanal, where he received multiple shrapnel wounds, to Camp Gloucester, Peleliu, and Okinawa. McDermott returned home to Fairhaven and worked for the U.S. Postal Service, Dorscheid said. He died in 1999 at age 76. Their descendants said they don't know how Leo and Vincent crossed paths, or even if they knew each other. Vincent may have picked up the small leather-bound book after landing on Guadalcanal, or he may have found it on one of the Navy ships. The diary begins January 5th, 1942, nearly a month after the Pearl Harbor attack, and ends just before McDermott's division landed on Guadalcanal. He described leaving to join the Marines, boot camp, and boarding a transport ship. Some of the diary's 32 inscribed pages are difficult to read. The diary now sits on Dorscheid's mantle next to a picture of her father. She's planning to donate it and another diary her father kept, along with photos of Vincent and Leo, to the Fort Tabor Fort, Rodman Military Museum in New Bedford, Massachusetts. Dorscheid said she still talks to her new friend Charlie Kitts often. She is thankful to the man she calls Uncle Vincent for rescuing her father's diary and preserving it all these years. It's an incredible gift, she said. My dad's come home again to me. And I'm out of breath. So Amy, what do you think?
Well, you never know what's up in those attics these days, but what a treasure to find a diary that documented those incredible events that happened. I mean, straight from the person who experienced it. And I'm partial because me being in the Marine Corps and then being co-located here with the headquarters to the 1st Marine Division, otherwise known as the Blue Diamond Unit. And so that living legacy history is remarkable when people can find those in the treasure troves from their fathers or grandfathers. It really just brings to life and brings them back to life, really. So what a nice story. What a great, sweet ending to sort of a mystery of what was service like back on Guadalcanal, Peleliu, Okinawa, out in the Pacific Island hopping campaigns for the U.S. Marine Corps.
Yeah, that's amazing. All right, rapid fire number 2. The property company ordered to repay troops charged illegal rental fees. A national property management company accused of charging 9 service members illegal rental fees has agreed to compensate the aggrieved parties and settle the case, the Justice Department announced Monday. In a complaint filed September 29th, federal attorneys claimed that JAG Management Company, over a span of approximately 2 years, attempted to extract thousands in lease termination fines from troops forced to move because of military orders. The Virginia-based firm settled the case the same day, agreeing to pay $41,581 to the service members and a $20,000 civil penalty to the government. Justice Department officials argued that the Service Members Civil Relief Act, a 1940 law designed to stabilize the civilian lives of military personnel, grants members of the armed forces the right to terminate a residential lease without penalty upon entering into military service or upon receiving qualifying military orders, such as a deployment or permanent change of station. 9 service members from 4 different branches living at a JAG property in New Jersey said the company demanded they repay thousands of dollars in rental concessions after terminating their contracts to deploy or PCS. Some troops, fearful of stains on their credit scores, agreed to pay the fine, according to the complaint. One Coast Guard lieutenant who refused to cough up $2,100 in fees was allegedly hounded by debt collectors enlisted by the company. Service members should not have to pay any fees, much less exorbitant fees, to landlords when they are simply complying with their military orders and protecting our country, Kristen Clark, Assistant Attorney General for the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, said in a press release. In addition to monetary compensation, JAG agreed to tweak its policies in accordance with the SARA and retract the negative credit reports it had filed against the tenants. Oh, did you? Did you agree to tweak your policies, JAG, after you were found guilty of stealing from service members? Thanks for tweaking it. Appreciate it. Are you kidding me? What do you think? You ever had something like this happen with all your PCSs?
Well, I'll say 3 words: make them pay, because that is so wrong to do that. They know better. And it's funny they were called JAG because if they had their own legal advisors, they would have been told that they cannot do that, but they did it anyways. And so I love it. And all service members should be familiar with the Service Members Civil Relief Act and know it, live it, love it, use it when you have to. It's just amazing that companies out there, private companies, still don't know what is included in that and those protections that service members are deserving of. And so thanks for sharing that story. That's a good one for people to remind them. Know your rights, know what you're entitled to, know that you don't have to pay in these instances. So yes.
Yeah, and I bet the people that did pay, if you have a security clearance that you, especially, let's say you have a top secret, you can't have it look like you're doing anything bad or any money troubles, then that affects your job. So these people screwed with their job, screwed with their money. I'm angry at you, JAG property management team. There's even further with the Members Relief Act, like there's credit card fees. There's certain credit card companies that the way they interpret that law is that they are not allowed to charge active duty members or anybody on orders credit card fees. So that's why, I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a lot of military people that if they qualify, they'll get platinum cards, which is one of the highest level of American Express cards. They will get those and the fees will be wiped out. And that is not a nice thing that Amex is doing. It is the way they interpret the law. So there's a lot in there. Make sure you know it. And if it feels like something shady, go and do some research and maybe get the base involved, because you shouldn't have to pay just because the military said you have to move. Not cool.
Indeed.
All right, rapid fire number 3. Farewell to J-Stars, the end of an era in military intelligence. In a historic moment, the E-8C Joint Surveillance Target Attack Radar Systems aircraft, known as J-Stars, wrapped up its final operational mission on September 21st, 2023, signaling the conclusion of its 3-decade-long service as a crucial eye in the sky for the U.S. Air Force, according to an official announcement. The aircraft's last mission took off from Ramstein Air Base in Germany, a hub for U.S. military operations across Europe. It ended its distinguished career that spanned conflicts from Operation Desert Storm to the recent war in Ukraine. You know about J-Stars?
Oh, I've heard about J-Stars for many years. And so it's sad to see it go, but I know that we have, new technology taking its place, bigger, badder, faster satellites, and that cyberspace is alive and well. So I think it's just a transition into something better.
Yeah, J-Stars are cool. And when I lived in Warner Robins, the big base down there, that was a big J-Stars base, and you'd see them up and going around, and they could just go for seemingly forever. They just keep being refueled, and their missions. So my husband flew C-130s. Their sorties were like 4 hours long. They could go kind of a bit farther, but for the most part, he would fly for 4 hours. J-Stars, I guess you basically live in the sky. You're up there forever. It's like being on a bomber. So I'm sad to see it go too. I hope the next one has cool names. And even the people that work on them now, they're called air battle managers. And like air battle manager, that seems pretty cool. So I hope that they get a cool new names. That's mine.
Yes. Well, even more unmanned, space traveling ISR assets out there. So we're moving into a new era. So it's kind of exciting, but for some of those old legacy programs, that J-Stars was cool when it first started. So everything has a life cycle.
Yeah, everything has a cycle. Yeah. Well, is there anything else that you want to touch on this week? You got anything coming up? Or I know the Be the One podcast, that's
we're
still going
excited
strong.
We're excited to have so many great people in the lineup coming up for Be the One podcast. It comes out on the 1st of every month. It's really to bring awareness to veteran suicide, and the American Legion is at the forefront and leading the efforts to talk to experts, talk to scientists, talk to people who are really moving the needle in this effort. Also, we've got the American Legion that is a proud sponsor and an advocate for the upcoming MCON conference happening in Las Vegas, November 10th, 11th, and 12th. So if you can find yourself in Vegas, you definitely want to come out and join MCON live. It'll be in Las Vegas. And it's where it's put on by veterans for veterans. And so lots of exciting things happening with the American Legion, but you definitely can find me over at the Be the One podcast. So you can subscribe to the Tango Alpha Lima YouTube channel. You'll find us there. And of course, always looking for guests, and we can connect and keep the conversation going.
Awesome. Can't wait. Wonderful, wonderful podcast. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging in there with us today. We love you. We know you. You're invited over for Thanksgiving. If you can, get yourself and all your family members to subscribe to the Tango Alpha Lima podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you consume podcasts. If you could, please leave us a review and make sure it's 5 stars. If you choose not to leave us a review, my plan is to take a very sharp knife, and I'm going to cut the back of your left shoe, like the shoe that you really like, that you wear often. And then, you know, the squeaky toys, the little plastic, there's like a squeaky thing that's in a dog toy. And it's see-through. It kind of goes, it makes it sound like a screaming animal. I'm going to take that, and I'm going to shove that right in your heel of your shoe. And then I'm going to JB weld it back shut, and I'll paint it nicely, and it'll look good. You won't have any idea until you go to a nice fancy thing. And then every time you take a step, it's going to sound like you're stepping on an animal. The dogs will attack you. People will think you're strange, and you won't ever be able to figure out why. Wouldn't it be easier to leave us 5 stars? I think so. Thanks for doing that. We just want the world to know how much you love us. And if you have a guest recommendation, go to legion.org/Tango Alpha Lima. Click on the Suggest a Guest link. I'd like to talk to your grandma. please send her our way. Everybody, I hope you have a great week. Listen to us again, and we'll see you soon.
Bye, Ashley.